Okay, it is Wednesday. That means it's time for a house call with Dr. Elaine Chin. And up for discussion today, Robert Waldinger, the director of the Harvard Study of Adult Development, has just written a new book to share lessons from the world's longest scientific study of happiness.
It is an 85-year journey of over 2,000 people going through their entire adult lives, beginning back in 1938. It's also a fascinating study, and the Tiger Doctor joins us live now to talk about it. Dr. Chin, good morning to you. Great to see you. I feel like it's been a while since we've seen each other face to face.
I had some sunshine. I ordered myself a prescription.
Very nice. That'll make you happy.
Very nice.
Yes, it does.
So aside from sunshine and vacations, what did this study find that is the secret to happiness for people?
So the first aspect is dear to my heart, is that people who are happiest generally take care of their health throughout their life. But the single largest predictor is those who have good, solid relationships throughout their lives were the happiest. In other words, they were not socially isolated.
And that's interesting coming out of the pandemic, because social isolation was such a huge thing. We heard about the mental health issues that people, that contributed to because, people felt locked away and everything. So that's probably had a decline in happiness. It'll be interesting to see those numbers, I guess, in the coming years. But in the meantime, a lot of people say, you know what, maybe I'm not so happy with my social life, but I'm super happy with my career. I feel like I'm getting a lot of success. Does that seem to be real happiness, though?
Well, the study found it was insufficient. That doesn't replace your outside work, social relationships. So let's just do the other extreme. Those who have, who become workaholics, who neglected a range of relationships, were the most miserable by the time they were in their 80s.
Okay, so just because you're on Forbes' list of like top 100 or top 10 richest, most successful, doesn't equate necessarily to happiness. But if, let me ask you this, Dr. Chin, if money can't buy happiness, then why does it seem that those with a higher income tend to live longer?
Right, so the study also suggested that people who have higher incomes are generally better educated and have better jobs that pay better. So they have better access, and especially in the 70s, 80s, and now, to better health information. So they know what to do. You don't smoke, and more recently, drink less, sleep more, exercise better, and know the better foods to eat, and also have better access to understanding how to take care of their health overall, right? Checkups, things like that.
I was going to say probably just better access to healthcare, frankly, so people working one job rather than 3s and 4s and trying to fit those appointments in around other things. That all has an impact, right? And we saw what happened in the pandemic. All these cracks rose to the surface.
That's right.
And so this study kind of highlights that. But it's also, if people are watching this morning and saying, well, let me look a little bit introspectively, what could I do? Can you do your own kind of like mini Harvard study on yourself to find out your true happiness?
Well, you just need to start with an audit. So Jen and I just very briefly spoke because we have such a heavy career, right? And so we start with the bottom one, which is like the intimate or personal relationships, your family and friends, but we need to knock off a couple of other things. Do you have a well-rounded relationships? And they're called social fitness. That's what they want to call it.
That's the new term, right?
And so, we have sports and hobbies, and we have things around culture, so it's important to understand your music and your arts, and spiritually it's important, not to mention intellectually, to make sure that we broaden our horizons, and a book club would be a good example.
So Dr. Chin, I understand and I see the value in social fitness and being a social person. We're not an island, but I understand that there are a lot of people, especially these days, struggling with mental health and isolation and perhaps previous traumas, where it's not so easy for them to engage in new relationships because they fear that they'll get hurt again. So what's the advice for people who are scared of making new friendships, of forming new relationships because they just want to protect themselves?
So start with the things that you like to do. So if you like to do cooking, then take up some classes that are about cooking. And in that cooking class, you'll probably find like-minded people who like to talk about what they're making at home or just have a good laugh about it. And as you engage in that conversation the first couple of lessons, you're more likely to find people who are like-minded and develop relationships like that in areas where you like to do certain things.
So it's kind of like finding a natural icebreaker. Almost, right? You sort of get that in.
Absolutely, that's a good way of saying that.
You get a conversation, sort of talk about the cooking, and that can, I like this ingredient and whatever, and that can sort of spark something else. And it's almost like a hack to get into a conversation.
Exactly,
right?
It's just like fitness, right? So it's physical fitness and social fitness have analogies. You can't just do it once and go away with it, right? I dislike running. but I love cycling. So
Right.
if you got me into running club, that ain't happening.
But cycling, you're
I
pedaling
can.
all the
Yeah,
way.
exactly.
Okay.
Like, you know, a spin class. That's it for me. So I hang out with some people that are in spin class.
Right on. Okay, well,
Very
Dr.
interesting
Chin,
stuff.
that is fascinating
Yeah.
indeed. So, you know, the key to happiness, all right? Get those relationships going, get that social fitness quotient up.
Social fitness
Great
and
to have
real
that conversation.
fitness.
Yeah, indeed. Okay. And we'll have more with Dr. Chin next week, of course.